Welcome into our first edition of This Week in Missouri Politics of 2025. New session, going to be a new governor tomorrow. We have our traditional first panel of the year. Minority Leader Senator Doug Beck, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Ashley Aune, the House Minority Leader, thank you so much for being here.
Good to be here.
The first female pro tem of the Missouri Senate. Congratulations, Senator Cynthia O'Loughlin.
Thank you.
And John Patterson, the new Speaker of the House. Welcome to the show, sir. Thank you for making the time.
Glad to be with you.
Let's start from the top. You came in, you gave a speech, you gave a very candid press conference, and you started off with a crime plan. What is your vision for what the state could do to address crime in the cities?
Well, I think it's the big plan I think we're trying to put together. I think you'll see probably 4 or 5 pieces of legislation put together. One of the ones I laid out is something that would help us recruit and retain police officers, because I think that's a deficit that you're seeing in both Kansas City and St. Louis and in other parts of the state. So whether it's scholarships for the person to further their education or helping their family members do the same, just something that it would make it better to be a police officer, because, you know, the work that they do is, I'm not sure I could ever do it. So the people that are willing to do it for that salary, we should do something that makes them want to do it and help them out.
But the big part, are you going to take local control away from the St. Louis Police Department?
I think that's one of the pieces of legislation that's been filed, and it's definitely something that we'll look at.
Senator, let me ask you. I watched on the floor, there was a landfill bill last year, and some members of some Republican senators talked about how you shouldn't be involved in districts and things that don't affect you. You should let the senator who represents them control that. I think Senator may feel that way about taking local control away from her police department.
And so I agree with you there. And before I start, I wanted to say I agree with Senator O'Loughlin, President O'Loughlin, when she said yesterday that, you know, the crime is an issue from Joplin to St. Louis and everywhere in between. And we need to give need more police officers on the street, and we need more resources for them. So I agree with all those statements made. Public safety is a big deal for everyone. That being said, when it comes to St. Louis alone, if you look at the numbers for Kansas City and St. Louis, Kansas City does have state control police. Their shootings and homicides and things have been on the rise. St. Louis has been on the decline. All that being said is any part of this conversation has to have Senator May, Senator Roberts. They do represent the city of St. Louis, and I think they need to be a part of whatever that looks like, whether it's more revenue coming in, state control, all those things that we're talking about. We welcome the help, because at the end of the day, St. Louis County, the economic hub of the state.
Senator O'Loughlin, what do you think? I mean, it's going to probably come down to, can you find something that Senator May would agree with, right?
I think we can. I mean, it's like Senator Beck is saying. Both sides of the aisle are concerned about it, and neither side, in my opinion, ever has the exact right answer. So you find that answer by sitting down with the people that are affected and figuring it out. And I think we can do that.
Do you think that the state should control the St. Louis Police Department?
I can't say that I do, but I can't say that I don't. I had a series of meetings last year. I think maybe you and I have talked about that before. And we had the city of St. Louis, and we had the police union, and, you know, other affected people. And I'm a big advocate of trying to talk through things, try to isolate the things where you really do disagree, because a lot of the time, 80% of the problem or 80% of what you're talking about, you actually agree on. So we tried to isolate those things, and I felt like we did a good job. And it depends if everyone is willing to give a little. If everybody gives a little, in general, you can come to something that everybody supports.
I remember the local control election in the fight. Let's be honest. I don't think anybody can say that giving local control reduced crime.
I would also argue that the state having control over KCPD hasn't decreased crime. And I would also argue that the state has been in control of KCPD for a very long time. The Republicans have had a supermajority in the state for a very long time. They've had a majority for over 2 decades. Why have we not solved this problem yet? Why are we still seeing crime on the rise in Kansas City when the state has had control of our police department? That just doesn't make sense to me.
So we don't like to admit it in House State, Missouri, but if there's a highway that gets built in West Plains or some free cheese give out in Nixa, St. Louis pays a part of that.
Yeah, schools too. All the things.
Schools too.
We have a big, we're 37% of the GDP of the state comes from St. Louis County.
I think there's nothing the state could benefit more from than a more prosperous St. Louis.
100%. And the governor says that, and I agree with that.
Is there anything that would help make a more prosperous St. Louis than lowering the crime rate?
That would help. Also, we need to put some investment into areas where people don't have hope. And you and I have had this conversation before. We need to put investment in North County, our St. Louis City. We need to give people hope that that their lives are going to be better, right? You know, and I think that's a big part of this.
Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, you look back 5 years from now, are you really confident that the state can have an action that can significantly reduce crime in the major cities?
I think we can. I think we have to, really. I think just as a reminder, next year, hundreds of thousands of people are going to descend upon Missouri. 6 billion sets of eyeballs will be looking at Missouri. How can we not address it? So I think if it's the only thing we do, it's something that we need to get done.
Is this possible? Can you really, from Jeff City, craft a policy that significantly reduces crime in the major cities?
Well, so something you don't probably know about, or you may know that I met with the mayor of Kansas City because I talked about some of the street crime they had. And as a sort of an offshoot of that, I then met with Sly James and I met with Jean Peters Baker. And we talked about crime in Kansas City, and we talked about some of the efforts they had done in the past where this kind of ties into the speech I made yesterday, where they tried to identify problem areas where they could be a little more supportive of families, try to offset the poverty and other issues that families face. And that seemed to bring positive momentum. And we're going to continue meeting and talking. So, I mean, the fact that we're in Jeff City and maybe removed from the situation, but we have people here from all around the state. Mm-hmm. And I think collectively and collaboratively, we can make a difference.
I guess I'm pessimistic. Can you actually reduce crime from some policy in Jeff City?
I think we absolutely can, but I think it has to be a multifaceted approach, as we've discussed. I think we need to invest in the communities that really need the investment. We need to make sure that folks don't feel they have a reason to commit crimes. And if we can do that and address the public safety aspects, I think that a comprehensive plan is what Missouri needs.
Is it possible?
I think it's possible, too, and we didn't really address the gun issue, and I know that's a big thing, but there's the proliferation of guns. When you go into the city of St. Louis, quite frankly, and you see somebody blow a red light in there, people say, well, why don't the police go after him? Well, there's a chance he might get shot for going through a red light. You know, so that's a consideration, I think, as we go forward, too, and I know that's a tougher conversation.
I know a lot of folks that back in the blue unless you talk about guns, and not back in the blue.
And quite frankly, when I've talked to police officers, they would love to have some of those laws in place.
Let's talk about tax cuts. The governor's mentioned tax cuts. There's been a lot of talk about property taxes. End of the day, I love covering you because you're a business person. If you cut property taxes, what will you fund those? Will you just cut the services? That's the one thing Republicans don't talk about is you're going to cut taxes. In Missouri, you can't really deficit spend. What services do you cut?
Well, so when doing away personal property tax came up a few years ago, I went home and told people flat out, if we're going to vote for this, then I need to know what you want to do without. Because that's just the reality of it, unless you put another tax in place of it. So I think what you find in states where they have, done away with one kind of a tax or another, they actually impose a tax somewhere else, generally a sales tax or something like that. And in the past, when we've had that brought up, it was, brought up by people who lived in the suburbs or close to the city, and they have a lot of retail. Well, we don't have that. So 80% of our state kind of operates off of the personal property tax. And so if you're going to do something different, I think you figure out what that is.
So you, Mr. Speaker, since you've been in politics, you've cut taxes, 5 times? I mean, almost once a year since you got in office. I think the ARPA money and some different things, I think maybe for the first time you're seeing the impact of those tax cuts on the bottom line of the state. Now, that may be good, but if you cut deeper, it is going to have to, for the first time, the Republican Party will have to cut services, correct?
I think you're right, and it just goes to show that any tax policy that we pursue really has to keep that in mind. And I think some of the policies that I've looked at that have been filed really make it so that it's based upon the growth of revenue. In terms of property taxes, let me put this out there for us to discuss. Is one of the problems in Kansas City, at least, that we're having is that not enough homes are being built, so that the burden of the property taxes are felt by a certain number of people. If we can make it easier for homes to be built, then that burden will be spread across out of a bigger number of people. And so one of the things I think we could do is to reduce the regulations on home builders. Do we need all these green mandates that we have? And I think one of the bills that you'll see this session is reducing the regulations that you have, get more homes out there, then the burden can be spread out among more people.
So Beck, John Eilerman would like to hear that, right?
Yeah, he would. But I think we should have caution that when we take away local control of issues like this on safety, on buildings and things of that nature. I'm sure we're open to discussions on a lot of different things, but yeah, we need to, I'm agree, we need to have more housing for folks, and we also, I think, while we're talking about that, we need to address the rental issue. The percentages of rental housing in this state are getting very, very high, and we have a lot of these owners are out of state, California, New York, other places, and they own these properties, and they're absent landlords, so to speak, and now you have, I believe in Springfield, 60% of the people who live in a home there is a rental, and that's a problem.
Representative, I mean, Mark Dalton had to love what he just said, right?
Absolutely. And I agree. I live in Kansas City as well, and we need more homes built, period. We need starter homes for families. We need folks who are currently only able to, rent maybe a luxury apartment, but they've got, 4 folks in their family and they need a roof over their head. They want a yard, right? These are things that we need to incentivize. And if we can do that from the state level, I'd love to see that.
As far as taxes go, Senator, I mean, you are to the point now where if you cut more taxes, you probably start having to cut services. And those services probably get cut not as much in your district, who can fund it other ways, probably south and west of you.
Yeah. Are you talking income tax or are you talking property and personal?
I've heard the new governor talk about all income taxes to zero, property tax decisions.
The vast majority of your personal property and your property tax go to your local areas. I wish we wouldn't mess with that at the state level. As far as income tax goes, any tax that doesn't give relief to working families and goes to billionaires and corporations, I'll have an issue with.
What do you think? Did they pass another tax cut?
I certainly hope not, but I could see that rising to the top this year.
The appropriations chairmen probably don't like hearing that, right? It has been an interesting track, though. Do you cut taxes in the General Assembly this year?
The appropriations chair is not a job that I would like to have, but we should cut taxes. We should always be looking to reduce the tax burden on everyday Missourians.
Well, your appropriations chair has an effeminate haircut. I do think he would probably tell you that cutting more taxes means we're out of gimmicks. It's probably time to actually cut the budget too, right?
Well, I think that we will cut taxes, and I think that we will have a plan that helps us to do it reasonably and doesn't inflict suffering. I think one of the things I'm very passionate about is government operating in an effective way and an efficient way. And, I've talked to Governor Kehoe about a few things that we're doing that really cost millions of dollars that, in my opinion, are failures. So
What are they?
why don't we start looking at different? I'm not that crazy.
Well, we're going to take a break. Maybe we can fish out of the next segment. We'll talk about expectations of the next session after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
I'm Scott Faughn. Join me for an in-depth look at the life and the career of Missouri's 57th governor, Mike Parson. We'll sit down with his former staff members, other state leaders, and the First Lady for a look at his entire career and legacy that he leaves behind the state of Missouri. Join me for an in-depth look at the life and the career and the legacy of the 57th governor of the great state of Missouri, Mike Parson.
You know, Missouri farmers have been doing what's best for their land for generations. After all, no one knows what it takes to feed and fuel a growing global population better than they do. So why are trial lawyers threatening Missouri farmers' best defense against weeds? Our farmers don't need to be controlled. They need to be supported. Keep glyphosate in our state. Show your support at TakeControlMissouri.com. Paid for by Modern Ag Alliance in support of Missouri farmers.
Of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. Opinion maker panel for the whole session this time. Our traditional session kicking off the legislative year with all the legislative leaders. Senator Beck, what is your what is something you'd like to see done this session, and what's your expectations?
Well, there's a whole lot of things we agree on, so I would hopefully focus on those. And if we focus on those, it could be a great session. I mean, I truly appreciate Senator O'Loughlin's leadership, and we've had a good relationship. And I think we can have a really good session. I know there'll be times when we're diametrically opposed, and
Sure.
that's just the way it is. But at the end of the day, as long as we stay truthful and honest with each other, I think we'll get through those times.
Give me something you want to see happen.
I would really love for us not to go after the will of the voters, so we should respect the will of the voters in the state when they make a decision. I wish we would not try to go
I think he's talking about abortion. I don't know for sure, but I think he means abortion.
Abortion, Proposition A is another thing I keep hearing about, changing Proposition.
Minimum wage?
Yes, minimum wage and family leave. I could keep hearing.
With inflation, the minimum wage hike, they probably would have asked for more if they'd have only known, right? Wow. What's something you want to see happen this session?
I'd love to finally see the child care tax credit package get to the governor's desk. Representative Shields in the House has been working on that for years. It's a solid piece of legislation. It affects workforce development in our state. Every single business leader has told us year after year that one of the biggest problems they have is employee retention because of child care. We've got to do something.
One of the evolutions I've seen just since in your career, especially yours, is Democrats on the side of business more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And the child care tax credit is an absolute way. Yeah, that'll get passed only with Democrat votes, right?
Absolutely.
What's something you'd like to see done?
I think everything stems from stable families. If we have stable families, then we don't have young people growing into young adults who then have dysfunctional lives, and then we're trying to fix the problems. I would like to see us do something about the St. Louis City, the public school there. I think we all agree on that. There's a lot of problems there. I'm a big fan of Tiffany Anderson. I keep asking her every year to come back, and she hasn't done it yet. But I think that there are ways to make a difference there. If you have an education system that is basically not educating anyone, I believe that those people then go into crime, because what are the other options if you can't read and do math? So I want to see something done about that. I'd like to see the children's division totally revamped. I think the foster family setup is not working. I was a foster parent, and as the state is sort of prone to doing, I think we have implemented things that have just created this mishmash of systems and requirements that don't work well for the kids. So I would like to go in, and if you have vulnerable young mothers, let's support those and mentor those small families in the beginning and help them get on stable footing, and then maybe they can move up and out of that situation. So I'm all about families and children.
What do you want to see happen in the city? What's something you'd like to, when you drive back home to Kansas City, what do you want to see happen this session?
Well, I think we're all going to focus on crime, so I would love it at the end of session to say that we actually got something done that would make a meaningful difference in the lives of our constituents. And then again, housing is such a problem, especially in Kansas City. I would love to be able to go home and say we reduced this regulation that will now make it easier for home builders to build homes and get families into homes, and as opposed to renting like we talked about.
Right. Let's talk about, you brought up, you referenced the will of the voters. Senator O'Laughlin, the Amendment 3 did pass. By not a large margin, but it did pass. I know there's a lot of your members in your caucus that want to address that either with legislation within those frameworks or put something on the ballot. Is that something that actually by the end of session, I assume that's a last day of session thing, will that move through and what's your position? Do you think the voters should take another look at that?
I do. I mean, if you took any time at all and listened to any of the ads or you read those 50 words, you really did not know what all was contained in
Well,
there.
that ballot language was written by an absolute left-wing judge. I mean, he used every talking point that he was given from some left-wing folks. And it was, by the way, an elected judge, not a Missouri Plan judge that wrote that.
Well, what can I say? There's failures everywhere.
Mr. Speaker, there's been a lot of talk in your caucus about Amendment 3. If it had won by 20 points, I think maybe people view this a little differently. Because it was a close vote, do you think the folks, I've always thought when you set this back to the state, it was going to be messy for a while. In Missouri, it was going to be a messy time for the people of the state to decide where they were on this. Do you think the voters should take another look at that in 2026?
Well, I don't think, within the House Republicans anyway, I don't think whether it passed by 20% or 1%, there's a difference there. The House Republicans are pro-life. It is our number one issue. For me, when I look at Amendment 3, there are enough things that you can look at just working within the framework of it, the questions that need to be answered. I think those are the things we ought to focus on. I think in terms of the legislature, both sides of the rotunda are really trying to figure out what it is that they think should be done. But I think you'll see something because it is such a high priority.
What do you think? It is an interesting thing. You see people go to the ballot box and they vote for something like Amendment 3. Then they vote for the Republican legislator. And you've watched it with many, right to work, on and on. Would it be easier for you to say this is ridiculous, the voters have spoken, don't go back to it again if they'd have won by 15 points, 10 points even?
I don't think so. And I think the reason is because any of us who serve in the legislature, if we win by one vote, we win and we represent our district. Amendment 3 won. It passed. The voters have spoken.
Let's talk about Governor Kehoe, somebody you know very well. I don't know there's been as much excitement about a new governor. Probably nobody in the history of the state is as qualified and prepared to be governor as Mike Kehoe. What have your conversations been like since he became governor-elect?
You know, he has the golden speech. Everywhere he goes, he knows someone there, and he can talk about their family and their business. So when it comes to retail politics, I don't know anyone any better than him. And the reality is, on the other side of that too, he also has run businesses and knows what it takes to do that. And I think that's a very powerful combination. I think he has an opportunity to do great things, and I truly am looking forward to working with him. And I send him little tips all the time.
Coaching probably helped, right? A little advice there. Mr. Speaker, what do you think? I mean, tomorrow Mike Kehoe will be sworn in as governor. There is a lot of expectations on him just because of just the volume of people he knows in this state. But I mean, he really has, from MoDOT to Senate leadership, to Lieutenant Governor. He probably has the best resume of anybody to take this job. What has your conversations been like going into session?
Well, there are no more superlatives to give Governor-elect Kehoe. So let me talk about something that he talks about and sort of joking that he's a car salesman. And I actually think this is going to be one of the best things about Mike Kehoe, to think that he's going to go to different countries and sell Missouri and get those businesses to move here. I think that is a tremendously attractive. And then, of course, all the other things that you said. But I can't wait to see Mike Kehoe go to other countries and say, you need to come to Missouri.
What do you think? I mean, I understand you're different political parties, but you have a relation with Mike Kehoe.
Absolutely.
What do you think working with him be like?
I'm really looking forward to working with him. I know Mike to be a reasonable individual, and I think as governor, he's going to be someone who I at least feel that I can have a conversation with him as a leader of my caucus. I feel that his door is open to my ideas, even if we're not going to agree. I think he'll listen, and I have a lot of respect for folks who are willing to sit down and listen.
What do you think?
I agree with it. He's a great guy. I have a good relationship with him. He's willing to sit down and talk with you. He'll ask you what your priorities are. He talks to you about all those things. Is great. And as the speaker said, I think he has that ability to bring some economic, expansion here in the state, and hopefully we can do that. He told me one of his big things will be career and technical education. Hopefully that'll be in his speech, and all these other good things will be in the speech, and we'll look to support him in those areas where we agree.
Let's talk about utilities. As a follow of your Facebook page, I know you have thoughts on utilities. What does Missouri need to do? Because it does feel like right now it's a very complicated regulatory landscape. What does Missouri need to do to streamline that and make it a little easier to understand?
Well, Kayla Hahn, Commissioner Hahn, I guess that's what we call her now, she has done a good job of trying to look at the overall picture of the regulations that we have, also working with all of us that are concerned about utilities. I mean, the biggest problem we have in that area really comes from the federal government. And they've spent billions of dollars on solar and wind, which is an intermittent source of power. And like these industries that want to move into Missouri, they need power all the time.
Guaranteed.
And if it were up to me, and I talk about this and meet about this and talk to Kayla about it, I don't want to see coal plants torn down. Coal plants, when they have scrubbers installed, they're a clean source of energy. I would like to see us look into nuclear. I think with the new Trump administration, you will see some of that happening. We've poured too much money into power sources that are not able to keep the lights on.
Yeah, nuclear's a big interesting thing. They're going to pull the power on us in a minute, so with a minute left, 2-1 a week.
I'm going to say President Cindy O'Loughlin. She got a unanimous vote to be president. That doesn't happen in the Senate on practically anything. That was amazing. And then they invited all the previous women senators to come in, and so that was a great day.
2-1 a week.
I am going to say Speaker Patterson's kids yesterday, they were up on the dais and they read us the Bill of Rights. And it was so good. They were so articulate and they were adorable. Well done.
1 a week.
I think Mike Kehoe wins the week.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
An
just
amazing king.
He's a winner.
I think that's right. He is a winner. Who won the week?
I'm going to say the Kansas City region, the legislative session is starting, and they have 3 out of the 6 leadership positions in both the chambers. Rather remarkable for one region of the state to have half of the leadership positions.
And the speaker for the first time in 100 and some years?
167 plus.
Congratulations. Well, I'm contractually obligated to say Jeremy LaFavor because he won our betting line. You go to MissouriTimes.com. You can subscribe to the Whispering Gallery. Email LaFavor one, but I'm going to say Mike Parson. Wrapping up 6.5 years of being governor, endured a lot of tumultuous times. I think he served this state very well. You can actually watch the documentary we did with PBS here in Central Missouri about his life and his career with the Supreme Court justice he appointed with Governor-elect Kehoe at PBS.com. We'll see you next week here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, the United Electric Cooperative, and the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts.